Welcome everybody, we are here at the St. Louis Chess Club in the capital of chess in America, the Central West End. My name is Alejandro Ramirez, I'm here with Yasser Seirawan.
Hello Alejandro, looking forward to another great show.
Another great show. We're here today in chess as we analyze and highlight the most important happenings of the chess world today. Of course, we've been looking at the candidates tournament here in Moscow. Sir, how's it been going?
Well, first of all, it's been a great tournament, and we've had a couple of lead changes. And today's game, Fabiano versus Vachier-Lagrave, my goodness, that got our attention from the moment we woke up.
Absolutely, but okay, before we get into that, let's take a look at the standings going into round 10. So after round 9, it was Sergei Karyakin and Vachier-Lagrave, both with 5.5 points, leading the pack, but they were followed very closely by Armenia's Levon Aronian and America's Fabiano Caruana, 5 points out of 9. Anish Giri, with his 9 draws, is looking for his first full point, trying to actually put pressure on Karyakin and Anand. Svidler has had a little bit of a disappointing event, but not nearly as much as Hikaru Nakamura and Veselin Topalov, who are, practically speaking, almost eliminated from first place. Anything could happen, but it seems very unlikely.
Absolutely. Realistically, their chances, the last two players aren't there.
And let's see what happened today, as Maurice Ashley has with us the results so far.
Well, it was absolutely a spectacular day for American fans because Fabiano Caruana managed to surge ahead and jump into a tie for first. After some really rocky games so far in the competition, he was able to defeat 5-time champion Viswanathan Anand, who frankly played like a boss yesterday, but was not able to slow down the Fabi train. The other two games that are finished, Svidler drawing Nakamura in a somewhat interesting game, and Karyakin versus Giri, that was basically a tepid draw. Aronian and Topalov are still pending. But it's Caruana everyone is talking about right now with 4 rounds to go. He defeats Anand in a huge game, absolutely huge game, now in a tie for first place, looking ahead to see who might he be able to defeat to take this championship home. Well, he has 4 rounds left. It's a long way to go to be talking about all this, but there's a key matchup in the last round against Karyakin, and that is going to be a key one because we have the co-leaders here. You see the 4 rounds. Topalov versus Caruana tomorrow. Caruana will play Aronian in the next round. Then White against Svidler. So he gets 2 whites in a row. Does Caruana expect him to go for it? And then we talked about that last round matchup against co-leader Karyakin, Sergei Karyakin. A lot to play for, but the American is absolutely ecstatic for sure. With more on that is my colleague, Eric Hansen.
Thanks, Maurice. Yeah, definitely the first half of the tournament, Caruana was a bit shaky. He had some opening problems, had some lost positions. But the second half is really, we're seeing the Caruana that, reminds people of the Singfeld Cup, where he had that legendary performance. What he's done, his victory today and his victory over Nakamura, has shown his world-class preparation. He's getting, once he's getting into the groove, he's getting the positions he knows, and he's winning quite comfortably. To me, so far, the clear point is really he held 2 positions. He resisted. He has no losses, even though he's at lost positions. Holding that second lost position he had against Giri, he's showing tremendous sporting qualities to me so far. Out of all the players, it seems like he is the most hungry. Right, we have the different approaches today. We got Karyakin playing d4 with a fairly solid draw, and Fabiano really going guns a-blazing today. So I'm really impressed, and back to Alejandro.
Well, it's definitely been a wonderful performance by Fabiano today. We'll take a look at that. But before we get into that, let's take a look at what these players are playing for and how they're playing for it over in Moscow. The tournament format is a double round robin. They'll be playing each other twice, once with white and once with black. Time control, 100 minutes for the first 40 moves. 50 minutes will be added then until they reach move 60, then another 15 minutes, and all throughout they have a 30-second increment, so a very long time control. And of course they are playing for the maximum prize here. It's a winner-takes-all tournament, as even though there's a lot of, when you were calling it, consolatory prizes, right, it's everybody trying to vie for that first place, as the winner gets to play Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship in New York in November. That being said, here are the prices for the tournament itself. $107,000 going to the winner, $99,000 for second place, and well, once you get down to 8th place, I don't think you can even cover your second's expenses.
Absolutely right.
It's an expensive tournament. There's going to be a lot of energy that was focused here. players are bringing in their entire team to work with them, and well, they've been planning for it for over a year, I think.
Exactly. Well, Eric's set up a conversation there. He was explaining how defense wins tournaments and how Caruana has saved 2 extremely difficult positions. That having been said, today it was a case of the attacker, Fabiano Caruana, coming out guns a-blazing. And we have, from the opening, what I would call the critical position. And I'm laughing to myself because before we came on set, there's a great opportunity at move 17 for Fabi Caruana. And he made the bishop takes h6 sacrifice, and I was ecstatic. I thought this was just a great sacrifice. The funny part is that you had said, you know, bishop h6 isn't the best move. And I went, what?
Well, that's what I heard. I mean, I was talking about this position with several of my friends, and I was told that actually Maxime Vachier-Lagrave considered another move to be the strongest. I don't know which one he considered, but the computer, my computer at least, which is pretty strong, said that bishop d2 was the best move. And I was just like...
I thought this was hilarious because I could imagine myself with a student, and he made such a move, and I would say, what are you doing? You know, you're blocking your rook on d1. Think aggressively. This is too slow. In my view, I would have only considered 2 moves. The one played as well as knight takes c4. Knight takes c4 looks like a nice edge for white, but bishop takes h6, sacrificing the piece, was, you know, the man's move. You know, you got to go for it, you know. And there he went, bishop h6, queen h5. And I thought, you know, rook f7, knight g4, knight f6, queen h6, all of these really great attacking ideas for Fabi. Vichy coolly returns the piece with knight e7, f5. Well, you got to take that. Queen g5, there was a trade. And now another very, very key moment. I was sitting there thinking that, well, what Fabi needs to do is play the move g4. You know, just to cement this pawn structure, keep that bishop out on h7, and I completely underestimated the strength of f6.
No, that was quite a nice move, I think. Fabi was talking about it later in the press conference, and how this pawn, we could see later in the game, really killed Black's king.
Exactly. It keeps Black's king under wraps, and furthermore, it does cement this knight on e5. There's no more f7, f6 for Black chasing away that knight. As the game continued, another great move, I thought, rook here, just attacking the knight. I mean, your normal reaction might be, well, I better cover this pawn on c3. Fabiano had calculated very deeply at this point and realized that once he gets to this position with the bishop coming through on b7, it's all one-way traffic.
Yeah, and I want to take a look at it, the entire game, and maybe Maurice can take a little bit of details on what happened in this game, not only just from the moves point of view, but what happened overall.
Okay.
Well, I found this game to be fantastic. Like we said, it's reminiscent of Fabiano from the Sinkfield Cup a couple of years ago, and the way he played, Eric, it's just boss chess. I mean, it's just like, I want to win this tournament. When I get the white pieces, I'm going to go for it. Bishop d2, are you kidding? No, we're going to sacrifice. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to go for it. We're going to try to win the tournament. And I think that the last thing people want to see is a confident Caruana, because he's shown that when he's confident, he can beat everybody and just keep beating them every game.
For sure. I agree that bishop d2, no. I mean, right now he's putting the pressure on Vichy. Vichy hasn't been tested too much this tournament. He had that one game against Karyakin, but for the most part, he's been getting calm positions. He hasn't had to defend a lot. He hasn't had to suffer a lot, even, you know, and today he just went for it and said, you know, Vichy, if you're going to hold this position, you're going to have to find a lot of only moves, and he wasn't up to task. But I thought he really did the right plan today in playing a very aggressive setup. And if you're feeling good, I mean, you should play accordingly, and it seems like Fabiano's feeling very good right now.
What's incredible is how topsy-turvy this tournament has been.
Yes.
First, Aronian jumped into a tie for first, and everybody was like, look at Aronian. And then all of a sudden, it was Vichy's turn to jump into a tie for first. And I mean, he's just like a boss also. Vichy just looked dominant. His candidates from 2 years ago. After 9 rounds, he was in clear first, this time with a tie for first. Everybody was predicting that maybe he's going to keep it up. And now it's Fabi's turn. But there's one staple so far in the tournament, and it's Karyakin. He's just been sitting there on +2, content to draw, not doing anything different and not wanting to stumble before the last 4 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly pretty much 4 players who are contenders. And so far, we haven't had anybody really win with black. That might be a big factor going forward. Everyone's looks good as white. But the difference is who has been defending well, who has been fighting and holding, because everyone's been getting bad positions as black. But it's Karyakin who stands out there being the most solid. And Caruana, he was really actually, dead, but he somehow survived. But it's like defense winning the championships here.
But and actually, didn't Aronian win a game with black?
Is that the one game?
I think that might be a difference, yeah.
And that might be the difference, but for the most part, just being people getting very comfortable positions as white, and then whoever is holding as black. And right now, Karyakin stands out, but Caruana is making a big claim. So,
well, I get the feeling that these next 4 games are going to be insane. They all realize that they have to win. There is no second place. There is no future qualifiers. So we can expect a lot of fireworks coming up in the next 4 games.
Absolutely. A lot of different people here vying for that challenge against world champion Magnus Carlsen. We actually have a graphic on, well, who should challenge Magnus Carlsen?
Yeah, who would be the most dangerous opponent?
The most dangerous opponent. Here we have, percentage-wise, actually, Caruana and Aronian. This is classical chess only, I'm pretty sure. Yes, right. Classical chess only.
No blitz
or rapid. Caruana has, as well as Aronian, have 5 wins each. Aronian and Carlsen have played a lot of games. So about even between those 2 players. Geary has also won once against Carlsen, has never lost a game, so he's he's the only person actually with a plus score against the world champion. Then there's Hikaru Nakamura, which, well, he has his horrible record against Carlsen. Karyakin, well, not doing so well. They haven't played that many games, lots of draws between them. Anand has a pretty decent score against Carlsen, but of course that includes a lot of those games that they played when Carlsen was reaching the top, but wasn't quite there yet.
Exactly, so that's a flattering score to Vichy, especially when you consider they played 2 World Championship matches where Magnus won comfortably, let's say.
And Yasser asked us to poll the audience yesterday, and who do you think should challenge the world champion? And well, little surprise there. Actually, a little bit. Sergei Karyakin not getting a lot of love there despite being tied for first place throughout the entire tournament. Perhaps a little bit because he is unknown relatively in this side of the world. Hasn't played in the U.S. yet. Has actually never been to the U.S. But, well, he's making his mark here in this tournament. No, not the crowd favorite, at least from our Twitter poll. Levon Aronian 22%, but it's Fabi and Anand that really take the crowd's approval of challenging Magnus Carlsen.
Well, and of course, what a sweet matchup if the American were in the tournament, in the match, in New York. By the way, there is a telephone number that people should call should they have any questions for our panel, and I think that's up on the screen right there.
Right, if you want to call here at 1314-361-5465. You can simply call us, join the discussion, and ask any questions you want. We'll welcome all the calls, and I'm going to throw it back to Eric and Maurice on more details on what happened today.
Well, I have to say I'm somewhat surprised by the fact that the fans voted so heavily for Anand. Although Anand has his favorites, of course he has his fans all over the place. India has 1 billion of them, so if they're watching this show, you can be sure Anand's numbers would have been even higher. But the thing is, he's already played Magnus twice and lost. So it's actually funny to my eyes to see that he's that close to Fabi in terms of what the fans want to see, in terms of a match, like a repeat of a third match between Anand and Magnus. That seems quite strange to me. But certainly Fabiano, younger, incredibly, than Magnus Carlsen. Magnus can't think, I'm the elder in the match this time. That would be a really interesting matchup for sure.
Yeah, the numbers don't surprise me too much. What surprises me is maybe 22% for Levon Aronian. I think he's globally loved pretty much. And, Armenia is a small country, so if he's comparing to Fabiano with all the U.S. votes, Anand with all the India votes, Aronian with 22%. A lot of people, still remember his days when he was a clear number 2. So I think for the most part, if we take a random sample, it's going to be Aronian and Caruana, the new challengers that just the global people all over the world would be looking for.
Yeah, he's been 28-30. He's an eminently likable guy. Of course, he's the last winner of the Singfield Cup. showing the Americans tough time winning all 3 games against our American players. He said he really liked America. We were a very welcoming country. But, of course, Aronian not in a great situation right now. I mean, is at +1. He's going to have to see what happens today in his game. But he's certainly a fan favorite, no question about it. And Karyakin, I think, just suffers from lack of exposure in some ways, at least on this side of the pond.
Lack of exposure. He doesn't have too many, let's say, interviews in English or like media things. So it's harder for people to relate. Aronian's done quite a few things in the media. He's like a hero here in the U.S. to the Armenian population. I know, every Armenian I meet, whether even in Canada we have some, they all know who he is. So, I mean, but Karyakin, he's from Russia, just not too much exposure yet.
Yeah, Aronian can't walk down the street in Armenia without getting mobbed by fans. I mean, he's a rock star. So this game, Yasser made this point. In this position, you had said, right here, this was the game between Aronian and Anand from the Sinquefield Cup. Remember this? When we saw this at the Sinquefield Cup, we were thinking, what is Anand doing, giving away these center pawns, the center like this, the way he does? But it turns out that Fabi had a new wrinkle for him in this moment.
That's right, Maurice. Bishop g5 was played in Aronian Anand, and after h6, bishop g5, h6, bishop f6, queen f6, this was played. White tried a little bit, but at least things have been clarified a bit. The bishop pair is gone, which is one of White's trumps. Instead, Caruana had...
And now point out, when e4 came on the board, we all love this position.
Yes.
Even Gary Kasparov, who I hear a rumor that he may be calling in later today, so you want to wait around for that one. Apparently he's coming in the second half of our show. Even Gary, when he saw this position, really liked it for White, but Aronian wasn't able to make any headway in that game.
Yeah, I think e4 is still a decent move, but because the game's already been played, Fabiano doesn't want to risk that Anand is just fully booked up because he's been showing great preparation. So while this was a good try, he had something new. He had something new up his sleeve.
So it was this position we're talking about. Yeah. Instead of playing bishop g5.
Instead of playing bishop g5, he dropped the bomb queen c2, which is a novelty in classical chess, as far as I can tell. And the benefit of this move is you may play bishop g5, you may not, but you leave the tension in the center. I mean, black has to find a move yet. After bishop g5, h6 is direct. Here, white has a few different options. You can still play bishop g5 and rook b1. There's just a lot of different possibilities here, and that just allows for a lot of play and for Fabiano to come up with some pretty good preparation here, but just to get chances. I think that's the main point.
So there is some uncertainty here. Anand did find the very first move of the line. h6 is the computer's recommendation, and now bishop to f4, and it looks as though the pieces are looking good, but still the potential of the light squares coming into the game. He decided to play the move knight e4, rook a d1, and now bishop f5. Now this is a position full of frothy tension right here. The diagonal, is there some kind of threat in the position? And he surged ahead with knight e5.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Fabiano got that type of fight that he was looking for. I'm not sure how deep his preparation was, but no matter what, I mean, there was no way to just liquidate the pieces in this position. So White does get, a chance for an advantage.
Well, it's important to check this line out, guys, because the engines, when you start digging a bit deeper with this position, you realize the engines actually like this move. Knight takes on g3, and he must have analyzed this. Caruana must have taken a look at this position, hitting the queen, hitting the rook. The only move here is e4. I mean, you don't see a position like this every day in a big tournament.
You don't see a position like this any day, and that brings me to a point is Anand these days has not been, unless it's preparation, he tends to avoid as many sharp positions or complicated positions as he used to when he was younger.
I'm sorry to interrupt you guys just for a second. We do have breaking news that the last game that we were waiting for has finished. Levon Aronian, he probably had some advantage during the game, but he was unable to convert. He has drawn his game against Vesely and Topalov, so we have all results today finished. That puts Aronian half a point still away from the lead. Well, it's Fabi and Karyakin at the top. Well, back to the game.
Yeah, that's a big result, obviously, for the standings. Aronian making sure he saved that game when he did have somewhat of an advantage in the beginning part of the game. So we see all the results. Again, it's been almost every round, either one victor or four draws. I think there was only one round with 2 wins in it. But right now, it's Caruana surging ahead with a big win over Vishwanathan Anand. All the other games, drawing Karyakin, keeping his position in the tournament. Giri still needs to get off the schneid. He has 10 draws in the competition. Giri's almost unbeatable. I mean, when does he lose? it's so rare you see Geary lose. It's like a meteor sighting when he loses. But he's not winning. It's the same thing. He's just got to find a way to win these games.
It's not only rare to see him lose, it's rare to see him have a bad position. His preparation has been outstanding here in terms of holding his black and getting good positions as white. But there's really something lacking there. His openings, he's making a claim, at least out of these guys, that he has the best openings. He's not had any issues with black, and that's often how you're judged by. But the killer instinct is missing, and he's going to have to take a long, hard think with his team and figure out what to do moving forward, because this must be just so frustrating.
That game against Fabiano was ridiculous. I mean, he was crawling all over Fabi. That could be the deciding game of the tournament if Fabi looks back and says, well, I drew some bad positions, but that one there, I mean,
that was the break.
Killed and managed to survive that one.
Yep.
That was an amazing
Totally
save,
agree
definitely.
there, Maurice.
And I'm being told that we have a phone call for us here at the studio. Hello?
Hi.
Hi, who do I have the pleasure of speaking to?
Hi, this is Alex from Boston.
Hi, Alice.
Hi, I have two questions. The first one, as Yasser likes to say, chess is a battle of ideas. I was wondering what the panel thought of the scarcity of Berlin defenses that we've seen, and whether it's a movement of the popularity of anti-Berlin openings, or if it's just because this tournament the players really have to fight for a win.
So
And my second question is, are there any players that didn't make the tournament that you would have loved to see? Maybe Kramnik or one of the Chinese players, Ding Liren.
Well, this is two very good questions for him. Alex made some good insights already.
We have some spot on the couch here. Actually, well, there's two very good questions. The first one, the scarcity of Berlins in this event. You said the battle of
everybody's
ideas.
playing anti-Berlin with D3.
Anti-Berlin. Well, I mean, my personal opinion is just that Berlin's not being cracked.
Absolutely.
It's just that simple.
That's a fact.
It's a fact. I mean, if people thought that they had something against the Berlin, trust me, they would come into the candidates huge, on fire, because this is what everybody's playing with black.
Right.
Doesn't matter who they play in this tournament. Everybody's playing the Berlin with black. If you find a refutation, you're going to
specifically to the end game.
specifically to the end game.
Yeah.
You're going to win and win big, but it's just not there. They haven't found it if there is anything at all. So they're relying more, I think, on playing chess, quote unquote, which is, well, sometimes working, sometimes it isn't. But the way that Fabiano, for example, beat Hikaru, I think that's one of the ways that people are really approaching this opening.
Yeah, and I still recall in Vaikonze this year where both Caruana and we played H4 in this anti-Berlin, and it was like really novel approach, and they got games. Let's just put it that way, and much more exciting games than the Berlin ending, where, like you say, people have just been breaking their heads on this wall and not getting anywhere.
Yeah, you can see how important every half point is. I mean, we have two people tied for the lead, two people right below on half point. It's huge. I mean, the difference, here we can see it. Fabiano Caruana and Sergei Karyaki now surging to the lead. They have 6 points each out of 10, but they're only half a point ahead of Vichy and Aronian. Okay, half a point is so big in the candidates tournament that if they can push with white, they're definitely going to try to do so. Especially now towards the end, I think you'll see them taking even bigger risks.
Absolutely. We'll go back to Maurice and the game of the day.
Well, the second question, what was the second question?
The second question was, what players would you like to see in this tournament that are not in it?
Yes, I would definitely lean towards Kramnik. I mean, Kramnik is a serious player. I think that just the level of chess you'd see, seeing it stacked all the way down. Kramnik is now number 3 in the world as Caruana has leapfrogged him. But I just think he would add a certain element to this competition that would be different. Now, in terms of maybe the younger players, certainly one of the Chinese is a great person to throw in there. Ding Liren has been really showing his stuff. And he would absolutely add something great to this tournament. So I guess it would be a toss-up between those two players for me. And maybe with the nod towards Ding Liren because he'd be a fresh face.
Yeah, as you said, Alex kind of answered the question. Kramnik and Ding, if you want an older, experienced player, then Kramnik is a good choice. Ding is, for me, it would be Ding or MVL for the younger players. I mean, Maxime has had a tremendous, he's been in tremendous form of late, catching up. And yeah, and then otherwise Kramnik, I would agree there. But I'll
And
throw in MVL.
Honestly, 2 years from now, Ding and MVL are going to be there.
They are.
That's how I feel. 2 years, 4 years. Those are the faces, the names you're going to see in the future without question.
Yeah, and I want to make a point about the first question. I think one reason for the lack of Berlins, and then we see what Fabiano played, is I think he played Berlin against Nakamura because he, maybe doesn't think too highly of Nakamura's that there would be a weakness in preparation. We haven't seen too many later on in the tournament because players don't want to risk wasting a white. But Nakamura's preparation here hasn't been too sharp. So, I mean, for the most part, I think most of the players trust each other's preparation, and that was just the case. I'll try it. It worked, but nobody's repeated it since then. And they've been going for the English, which is not as theoretical.
Also, stylistically, Nakamura is not a true Berlin player with the
That's
black
right.
pieces.
Yeah.
It's something someone said even about Carlsen, that he seems to have not quite the right measure of things in the Berlin. It's hard to call anything Carlsen does bad, but even Fabi was able to defeat Carlsen in Berlin as well. So there's some players who you just think, maybe this guy won't be able to hold it for too long. I'll be able to put some pressure on him, and that one worked against Nakamura.
Yeah, it was a very, very good call, but all the players have been equipped with different openings, and they're sure to mix it up.
Now,
And you guys, what do you guys want to see play in the candidates? Who would you prefer?
I think the three names that you threw out there are pretty clear. Kramnik is the only 2800 player not in the candidates. That's not world champion.
Yes.
Because he can't play. Ding Liren is a clear top 10 player. He is Chinese. He hasn't been given enough, I think, opportunities just yet.
Right.
He wasn't part of the Grand Prix cycle, which I think was a big mistake. Who else did we say? MVL, who's also top 10.
Clear.
I mean, clear. That's very clear. And I want to throw out Wesley So.
Wesley So.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, American Wesley So. He's currently, I believe, top 10 in the world as of right now, since Vachier-Lagrave has fallen out of the top 10 after his loss against Fabiano Caruana.
Today.
So in the live ratings, Wesley So is number 10, and I think that's a key player that I would love to see there.
Absolutely. He's so young and he's coming on strong. A point I'd like to take up with what Eric had said about winning with black. Now, as we're getting closer to the championship rounds, now keep this in mind, and we understand how important a win is the players who are just outside the bubble, they're going to have to take some risks with black, and maybe you'll start seeing open Sicilians, Benko gambits.
We'll see exciting
stuff.
This definitely reminds me of the London Candidates Tournament that we saw 2 cycles ago, and that was just
one of the most dramatic tournaments
incredibly
I've ever
dramatic.
seen in my life.
I mean, we saw a Pearce defense unlike
Yes.
the last round of the event. I mean, what was that about?
Hello, there.
I expect very cool
You
things
should explain to
coming
the
up.
fans why you're so shocked by that, Alejandro.
Well, there's, I think, and going back to what our viewer called in, we've come to expect some things.
Right.
In chess, there's this thing, basically, I can't describe it any other way, there's chess fashion. Some openings come in, some openings come out, some are pretty permanent. The Berlin is in vogue. I mean, everybody's playing the Berlin, everybody's happy drawing. The Pearce defense is
Wild.
wild, it's risky, it's not even entirely sound, I think.
As a perk player, I'll accept that criticism.
And it showed up in one of the most important tournaments in the world at the most important time, simply because black needed to win. He wanted to destabilize the game, do something unusual, even if it wasn't entirely sound.
Right. And keeping in mind that that game basically decided the challenger
Right.
and the birth of the Magnus era.
Exactly. I mean, because of, wow, that was such a big game.
Right.
And we're being told that we have another phone call with us here.
Hello?
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 Hello.
Alejandro?
Yes.
Alejandro, good afternoon, guys. You guys have such excellent commentary. It's just fun to really watch you, Maurice, and everyone there. I just wanted to ask a question about something that's been quite hard for me. It's visualization in chess. What the best way is to train to see many moves ahead on the chessboard. That's something that's really it's been a question for me for a long time.
Well, thank you for calling. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, calculation, I think, is one of the key things in chess, and we have a lot of good calculators, but these guys here in this tournament, they're the best of the best. And I want to throw it to Eric. Eric, how do you train visualization in chess?
Well, it definitely wasn't a given talent there. How I started was if I picked up a magazine or a book, I used to use the chessboard all the time, and then as I got a little bit better, I tried to start, going one move at a time in my head. I didn't even use a chessboard, and I started training. That was how it worked for me, e4. I don't play e4. I put it in my head, and I would try to slowly but surely see further and further. And when I analyze with my opponents, I'd sometimes just make little steps, but it was really just a gradual process for me. Once I got more into chess.
I think that's absolutely right. I think that most people don't do as much as they can because it's so difficult. It feels hard to do. Studying tactics, of course, trying to get patterns down pat, it certainly helps. You're able to see a pattern very quickly. If you just know a typical pattern, you can build on it because you can just visualize the final position because you've seen it so often. So it's important to do the work. Just do the work to try to visualize more and more. Strain yourself, push yourself. It's like a muscle. The brain has to expand. You work it, and it will prove results, but it won't be immediate. It's definitely a lot of work to pull it off. Just take your time and do exactly what Eric is talking about.
I'll toss in here as well, where I was actually very lucky. I had a class player, Jeffrey Parsons, who was really kind of a first coach, first teacher for me. And what Jeffrey would do is he would set up tactical positions, and I'd immediately start moving the pieces. He said, no, you can't move the pieces. I want you to solve the position in your head. So literally, he would force me to say, okay, if I take the rook, he'll take my queen, but then I'll check you on the back.
Yes.
I'd have to do it mentally. And literally, he put positions in front of me, and I'd have to calculate them mentally. And it is a training. And sometimes it really, really feels hard, right? Like you want to move the pieces, but the more often you can do those types of tactical puzzles in your head, it'll pay off down the road in spades.
Yeah, I think solving is really the key to it. It's something that you just have to train your mind for. There is no other way to do it.
Exactly.
You keep practicing, and you keep doing it. And grandmasters keep doing tactics because they want to keep themselves sharp. They want to have those patterns easily accessible in their minds. It's something that, it atrophies a little bit if you don't use it. It's something that really needs to keep.
You've got to exercise.
You got to exercise it. And speaking of visualization, we do have, unfortunately for me, the results of the predictions that we had yesterday.
I didn't do well either.
Well, this is how we're going into round 10.
I was okay.
I was doing okay with 50%.
Not today.
Not today. So let's see what happened. We all got this one. Well, this is round 9.
We need to go to round 10.
So this is the round 9s that we had yesterday. So we all got that wrong.
Right.
Vachier-Lagrave defeated Aronian with key game. Giri against Caruana. I went for the save. Giri draws every game. Even though he gave us a little bit of a heart attack there, I think Eric was definitely pushing for that one.
He was on the right track.
He was on the right track. Hikaru Nakamura drew against Sergei Karyakin. I can't believe you guys went against me. That should teach you all.
We're Naka fans.
Yeah, that's true. And in the ball of Svidler, that was a draw. I had Svidler winning.
Boy, I really I was shining that one. But
so this is where we stand after round 9.
Right.
And we had
what happened today?
We were on 2-2, so we had 50%.
Man, Eric, we're looking bad.
We're
Why is Eric
shooting 1 for 8. Shooting 1 for 8 back here.
Gee,
you want some coffee with your donuts there, Eric?
Well, but the comeback is on today. I'm sorry.
yeah,
I'm feeling
that's
pretty
good.
good about my picks today.
Me too.
Not
How does
today.
it stand today?
That's what matters. I mean, that's what matters, right?
Right. I know I didn't do well. I'm looking at you.
Forget about yesterday. I don't care about yesterday.
So do we have today?
We're not quite set up there at the moment.
Not quite yet, but we'll come back to it.
I just wanted to say another thing that I would really encourage, first of all, because it's the art, it's the beauty, is studies can really help your visualization.
Mm-hmm.
And the more patterns you learn in these studies, the stronger you're going to be. Now, you guys have got me on hold. You guys have been analyzing Fabi, but you can't get to it. Come on, get to it.
Yeah, we're going to get to it, but apparently it's time for a break. And if you want to see the exciting action that's going to continue from this crazy position and analysis, we'll be right back. Oh, apparently we're not quite ready. Oh, there we go.
I think the strategy.
How much do you hate to lose?
don't like it at all.
What about being second guessed?
I don't like that either.
Well, if I were you, I wouldn't have moved that rook. Checkmate. Sorry.
Whether you've played chess for years or never before, come experience all the sport has to offer at the world-renowned Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis.
You could fly to Venice or Paris or even Copenhagen. You could fly all over the world. But why? When you could just come to St. Louis. Your trip begins at ExploreSt.Louis.com.
We're back here with the Candidates Tournament, and today in chess we have all the results of today's round. Very important ones, of course. Fabi, the hero of the round.
Absolutely.
We're going to continue to analyze and dissect that game. We went over the opening, which I think is pretty key, and it's something that we were talking about a couple of days ago as we have the results of round 10 on screen. Peter Svidler drew against Hikaru Nakamura. Sergei Karyakin actually drew rather quickly against Anish Giri. That wasn't much of a game.
Very tame.
Very tame. Fabiano Caruana defeated Vishy Anand, which we will talk about later. And Levon Aronian certainly had an advantage against Veselin Topalov, but he was unable to convert. They played on for quite a bit, but the game became deadlocked, and a draw was inevitable. But we were talking about Kasim a couple of days ago.
As the second for Fabiano.
Right.
Yes.
Rustam Kasimdzhanov, former FIDE world champion, who actually, he won that world championship by beating me in the first round. One of my other painful memories. We'll get to that. He is currently the second of Fabiano Caruana, and we were wondering, can he step up to the plate? Can he beat Vishy Anand in preparation? And I think there is no doubt in anybody's mind that he flat out did.
Clearly, it was a great game, and Maurice and Eric were taking us to that critical moment where Vishy didn't play this move, knight takes g3, and I think everybody wanted to know why he didn't do it.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
In fact, in this moment in the game, the engine is saying that knight takes g3 is better for black, slightly, which is kind of a wild thought, right? Knight takes, if this is preparation by Fabi, knight takes g3, and now the move e4 in the position, and now knight takes on f1, takes here on f5, and now knight takes on h2 is a crazy variation. Of course, the knight is trapped. He's still capturing material. White's king is going to be a little bit strange in this position, but he did get two pieces for the rook.
He gets two pieces, and as long as those pieces stay on the board, as long as mass trades don't happen, I mean, White has quite a bit of counterplay, so it looks like a pretty just unclear position to me if this happened.
This must have been something that he looked at very carefully. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone for this line that is White.
Yeah, personally, I probably prefer the two pieces here and the attacking potential and the fact that I think Black has to find the harder moves. But, yeah, probably something analyzed.
And instead of this line, though, he allowed this position to happen. E4, bishop h7, queen e2, a move that Yasser mentioned earlier. Setting up the queen for this side, attacking this pawn, certainly dangerous. And after the move knight to e7, he now essayed this sacrifice. Bishop takes h6. We all love playing moves like this, ripping the king apart, opening up that castle position. And after g takes h6, queen to h5, this is like panic mode if you haven't seen this position before, and especially if your opponent is playing very quickly.
Yeah, and Fabiano is not like a natural attacker. I mean, he's a pretty principled player. When he plays bishop h6, it's because it's a good bishop h6. It's not really too speculative. I mean, yes, he wanted to win, but there's a lot of calculation behind that. So Vishy was just under tremendous pressure here, and I just think he was, playing a little too passive.
And I'm with you, Yaz. This was a critical moment in the game. Knight to d5 is what the engines give. Knight to f5 is what Anand played, and after takes queen to g5, this trade, my automatic response was the move g4. Like, let's see it. In the exchange French, I play an exchange French with c4, and you get this position, you can trick the guy into getting his bishop on h7, and he's going to be in deep trouble because the bishop is locked in. But here, g4 actually allows this move, f6, to come into the position. A little bit frozen on the screen right now. But anyway, knight, pawn to f6, and after f6, maybe you can look at it on your board, Yaz. That position allows the bishop to come back on the g8 square and come into the game. And that was surprising. I mean, f6, I didn't realize the power of f6 in this position.
No, because f6 is good and bad. It's also quite risky. That pawn can fall. But Fabiano judged the position entirely correct.
That was incredible how he managed to just own the position with the knight on e5. Yaz, I remember I walked into the studio and I said, so what happened here? Because I hadn't seen a bunch of the moves. And when you guys said he had played f6, g4, suddenly he just mauled the guy. I mean, he played f6 and it was just over. So how did it happen? And he just showed some serious power chess to finish off this game.
No, I think he showed incredible technique. And I think that move f6 is key. I mean, it's just masterful because everybody would have played g4. And it looked so natural, but the power of the move f6 just later in the game could be seen.
Well, let's see why the very natural move, the very natural move g4 was not essayed, which everybody would have played. Oops, well, here we go again. g4, f6, bishop d5 check, king g7, knight takes c4.
So here, white is recovering his pawn, right?
Right, precisely. Knight takes c4. Sorry, my mouse is just not get. There you go. I got the grip. Knight takes c4. So the play has been to try to kill this bishop on h7, which has been effective until bishop g8, and all of black's problems are solved. So this very natural-looking move g4 was actually a dead end.
Right. Well, actually, white retains an extra pawn in this variation, but it's not an easy pawn to convert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So what Fabiano chose, however, that was really impressive. I must say, I really like it.
And it was still full of tactical variations, as I think they can show us there on the board. f6, knight e4 was played by Vichy. I think it's a very typical Vichy type of idea, to try to counterattack with the few pieces that you still have available.
Yeah, he's a very ornery player. You know, just when you think you're squeezing him down, he comes up with these surprise moves. Knight e4 is a kind of like in-your-face type of move, where he's saying, hey, I'm going to go after this pawn on c3. I've got my counterplay. What are you going to do about it? Really a fantastic answer, in my opinion, was this move, rook on f to e1. A lot of us may have said, ooh, I don't like losing my base pawn on c3. But
and not only the base pawn on c3, but it's also giving up the base pawn on f6, or at least that pawn that seems so important.
Exactly.
But yet, this coolly calculated.
He sure did. And let's see what his calculations brought him. After knight takes c3, rook to c1.
And can we see really quickly before we delve into those variations, why didn't he take on f6?
Oh, you want to go back to this moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to see for the viewers, what was the issue with this?
Well, I think it comes back to the same variation we kind of saw in the game. Once you extract this very important pawn on b7, then this whole majority of blacks on the king side is actually seriously damaged. Rook b8, bishop c6. And there's just a lot of loose targets in the position, and it's, again, a kind of one-way traffic for white. Yeah. Not a winning advantage, by no means like that, but just very pleasant and very unpleasant for Vichy. So Vichy wanted to steer clear of this variation, which is why he chose
knight e4.
Knight e.
We'll come back to knight e4 in just a second, because that pretty much brings us to actually what happened in the game. We have a phone call with us here in the studio. Let's see who it is. Hello?
Hello, I'm Chad. I'm calling from upstate New York.
From New York?
Upstate.
Upstate New York. Big distinction.
Yeah, big difference. Ask Maurice. Difference.
Oh, yeah, big difference.
My question is this. The championship's going to be in New York this year. I'm hoping beyond hope that someday it'll come to St. Louis. Now, do you think that having it in New York pretty much negated that, or is that something you guys have talked about or heard about?
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, I think speaking on behalf of St. Louis, that is something that the St. Louis Chess Club is aspiring towards in the future. As we know, the very first World Chess Championship between Wilhelm Steinitz and Johannes Zukertort in 1886 was contested in 3 cities: New York, St. Louis, and New Orleans. So in the very first World Championship match ever, St. Louis was a host. Now, that's 130 years ago, right? And it would have been remarkable if it hadn't been New York, it might have been St. Louis. That would have been a remarkable period of time. So to answer the caller's question, it's something I think that the chess club and the staff here would look forward to.
Yeah,
we have ambitions.
We have ambitions, and I don't think that because the championship is in New York, it will negate in the future that it's in St. Louis. Quite the contrary. I think that because it's in New York, it will pick up steam in America. It will give more Americans a reason to follow, and that added optimism, that added benefit of having people watch chess might indicate that there will be more championships coming here in America, especially if we have an American challenger in the future.
All right.
I think that's true. I think if you get a champion, let's call it Fabi, for example, if he goes on and wins this tournament, and then somehow he manages to defeat Magnus Carlsen in a match, and I think it's going to be everybody calling for a repeat here in the United States. He can say he's on home turf. He's certainly a great friend of the club and of St. Louis. St. Louis has hosted many key tournaments in recent years, first-class events like the Singfield Cup, absolutely top-notch. The U.S. Championships that's coming up in a couple of weeks will be here as well. They know how to throw a party here in St. Louis. Chess party, you throw a rock and you see a grandmaster coming by for sure. They'll be catching that rock and chewing on it because there's some tough guys here. Everywhere you go, there's strong players. So there's a great chess culture here in St. Louis. And you know now as resident, grandmaster and resident here at the club, Eric.
This is the place to be, Maurice. This is the place to be.
Yeah, I think the World Championship will make itself at some point be here in St. Louis. It might not be this cycle, might not be the next one, but I think we will see one in the future.
And what about Toronto? Do you want to see a World Championship in Toronto?
I think, I mean, without a doubt, it's one of the biggest cities in North America. It'd be a great place to have it. We have our own New York, so one day, hopefully, you know, me one day.
Our own New York.
Our own New York.
It's hyper.
That didn't sound right.
No, I know it didn't sound right. But I can dream.
You have something like Brooklyn in Toronto?
Probably. I'm from the West, man. You know, so you have to ask for Calgary. That's
Stampede.
That's right, Maurice.
Dude.
Calgary Stampede in the World Championship match. That'd be rodeo and chess. It's a good combo.
Doesn't sound bad.
Guys, I'm anxious. Tell me how Fabi did it. How did he lock it up?
Let's continue with the game. F6 in this position, and it looks like my board is frozen again.
Oh, no.
Not sure what's going on today with these boards. Sorry, guys.
We have to practice some visualization. We might have to just...
Yeah. of course we can visualize. Yeah, so yeah, please
I've got you guys
bring it
covered.
up on the board there
F6,
for us, please.
94, this honorary counter-attacking move by Vichy. Now came rook e1. You heard me applaud this move very much. Knight takes c3, rook c1. I think a lot of players would ask a key question, why did he retreat his knight? Why didn't he take the pawn on a2?
And this was beautiful calculation by Fabi, I think.
How does it go?
Well, I believe rook takes c4 is the key move here, which hits pretty much everything that black owns.
That's ugly. There's not much question there. B7 is hanging, C7 is hanging.
This one,
and not only that, but the knight on a2 is suddenly trapped.
Trapped, so there's a rook e2 threats as well as capturing all of these pawns. If the rook ever does crash down to the c7 pawn, there is this pawn on f7 also hanging. But
yes, if you don't mind, could you analyze this variation, the move c6?
Absolutely.
Yes, I think that's pretty key to the variation.
c6, rook e2.
The problem is, how do you defend the knight now?
Exactly. How about this
Bishop to d3 is a crazy idea, isn't it?
Bishop d3, I think, works. Yeah, maybe rook a1 is simpler.
Bishop d3 is good.
Bishop d3 is good. Very good. Rook a1 is simpler. Boy, I hate to play b5.
But you have to. This is the
B5,
problem.
Yeah.
Rook C6, Knight B4, Rook C7.
Yeah, that's just ugly.
Just done because we can take on F7.
And you can
move.
you can take on F7. You're taking the Rook on A8, the Rook on A1, which we actually you were a little reluctant to put it on
there. Suddenly is
They're
perfectly placed.
perfectly placed coming into the A7 square.
Right.
No. But here,
And this would have been hopeless. That was why.
And that was mating ideas when you take
mating
Rook on
ideas.
F7. There's some mating ideas in there.
And
to
the
G7.
pawn on F6 is so powerful combined with the Rook.
Yes.
I mean, if we can maybe go to the end of that variation to explain to the viewers.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, take a look at that position. It's beautiful.
was
By the way, yeah. So Knight
variation?
C3, Rook C1. Just
Right,
go
Knight
for
C3.
Rook C1.
No,
No,
Knight
Knight
A2.
A2.
Yep.
So go
Knight
ahead.
A2.
Knight takes A2. Rook C4.
Yep.
C6.
Yes.
Rook A1.
That's a key move.
Right. B5. Rook
takes-
C6.
Knight
Knight
B4.
B4.
Rook C7.
Rook
And I think
C7.
a very key point here is that if, for example, you go, I don't know, Rook D8 just to save your exchange and attack my pawn, Rook D8, I think. I have Rook F7. And you don't have the trick Rook takes E5, which is very important.
Because of the nice intermezzo
Rook G7
check.
Right.
King, wherever your king goes. Now I take the rook and it's over.
Just over.
Yes.
And another line, if we could back up just a moment to show an instructive line, one more move. If he plays the move Rook to C8, for example, which is not looking like the greatest move in the world, but this line with Rook takes on F7,
Yes.
and suddenly this mating idea, let's say we make a move like Knight to C2, then Rook G7 check,
No, Rook G7 check is a lot stronger, yeah.
And a lot stronger.
and any king move, we got mate on,
On the spot.
on F7, or the king moves the other way even.
It's
King-
still mate.
King to F8. It's still mate with Knight to D7. So there's just lots of, and we could have also taken on A7 if we had felt like it, but I mean, these lines are just dominant.
creamy.
They're just,
Having a lot of fun here.
oh,
And it goes
no
to
way in the
show-
world.
It goes to show how key that pawn on F6 is.
No, it was so
Right?
vital to the attack.
It's like a springboard for all of White's attacking schemes.
But that's what's so crazy too, by the way. The fact that Black was taking stuff led to White's position getting better as the position opened up. And that was the key. You don't want to open up a position where the one side is more developed, better developed, more space. And the opening up of the game, this move, Knight C3, was the fatal move. He should not have played this move after his knight was attacked. He should have played his knight back to D6. This is a move, it's hard to play this
How
move.
can you play Knight D6 after
Exactly.
you
You just play knight on E4, rook Fe1. You had to say, oops, my bad, I get you, but I'm not going to play that move. Because the moment you go in, it's just an explosion. You just release the hidden power of the white forces, and then you're going to go down. So this move right here was clearly the most, I mean, you got to grovel sometimes. It's a very hard thing to do, though. We've been there before. You make a move, I'm threatening something. Oh, no, I'm not. Okay, what do I do now? I got to back up. I don't really want to, but you can't go into the line where you're going to die.
No, I think Vichy, I mean, he's a good calculator. He was looking for a way to get into a simpler endgame or just, clarify the position, but it doesn't work at all. And moving back, well, White still has all this attacking potential, so definitely not what I think Black was hoping for.
A line we ignored because sometimes grandmasters ignore variation. We're not going to look at that line at all. Yeah. But it's important to note this line too. Knight takes on F6. Of course, this pawn. Did you look at this line?
Yeah, we looked at it.
Oh, my apologies. My apologies.
Go for it. It's okay.
It's okay.
We actually want to know what the computer says.
Well, the engines do give bishop takes B7, rook A, B8, and in this position, the move bishop to A6.
Right.
And etc. So you guys, I'm sure, looked at this line. So this is crushing too. This reality, though, I think this is important for people who play tournament practical chess, right? You see this happen so often. Even Anand, we're talking about a 5-time world champion. Even Anand didn't think about, maybe he did think about it, but didn't want to bring his knight back to D6 to say, I said A, I want to say B, instead of saying, I said A, well, let's erase A, because it wasn't a good idea. This move was really a very solid move, attacking the knight, daring him to take this pawn on C3. The moment he takes his pawn on C3, the engines go crazy, like, you're dead. This is over now. After rook to c1, there are just no chances to save the game. You must play with knight to b5 as happened, and suddenly, bam, the explosion occurs. Look at all 4 of White's pieces. Compare them to Black's. I mean, it's no contest. And the fact that Anand walked into this line is really surprising, given that it's not that hard to calculate this position.
It is a bit surprising. His resistance was not the best today. And Caruana, if anybody was questioning his technique after that game against Topalov, well, he had to find not just one move. You had to find a bunch of very, very, very precise moves to win this game.
And so the move here was rook to a to d8, but I hear that we have a phone call for you, Eric. So
a phone call again.
Let's get the phone call.
Maybe like day one.
Hi, it's ABR calling from Philadelphia, and I had a question for Eric. Eric, what's your favorite chess piece?
What's my favorite chess piece was the question.
Yeah, what's your favorite chess piece?
Maurice, this is what I always say. This is my biggest pet peeve on a first date or something. If somebody asks what's my favorite chess piece, I just want to walk out. I mean, this is... What's with these questions?
They want to throw you the softball question.
You're
new to the stage.
I'm going to pass that question to you, Yasser and Alejandro. I do not have a favorite chess piece. I do not have a favorite chess piece.
I do have a favorite chess piece.
What's your favorite chess piece?
I do the knight. No question. I didn't have the knight was not a piece for me for a long time, but I've come to appreciate this piece more and more as I get older.
I'll answer this question just since you called in. I play a lot of blitz and bullet. That's how I started in chess, and that is my favorite time control. And in that type of format, I love knights. They are so tricky. You can do anything. You can be the dirtiest player. So knights, I'll give you that. Knights are also my favorite piece because of bullet and blitz.
Guys?
I'm shocked. When I started playing chess, I could not play chess if I ever lost my queen.
Your queen?
Yeah, my queen, the most powerful piece on the board. Come on.
Really?
Only much later, of course, I too fell for the lure of the knight. The knight is really a fantastic, unusual piece. It's great.
I hated queens. I still hate queens.
Really?
I despise queens.
Oh,
I love endgames. I love
beginner.
Capablanca. I hate all these, like, why do I have to be worried about sacrifices all the time? I hate my queen.
I was using my queen to wipe out all my opponent's pieces when I was a beginner. I thought it was the best thing in the world.
For me, it was always the bishops.
Really?
Always been
the
about
bishops. And I think the hardest piece for me, I always found the rook clumsy.
Clumsy?
Yeah. My rooks never got out. They were always passive. And my opponent's rooks were always doing bad things to me.
No, I hate when I have to play without my bishops. It's like all these positions where it's like, I don't have my bishops anymore. This is so stale. Why am I playing chess anymore? Yeah, no, it's about the bishops.
All right.
Well, we'll continue on our analysis a little bit later. I think it's a good time to actually take our break as we are reaching the 1 hour mark. But as usual, we're going to leave you with Beyond the Board, and we have a little bit of a painful topic today to talk about. Losses. We'll be right back with you guys here from St. Louis.
Mr. Matheny, what's your favorite part about this sport?
I think the strategy.
How much do you hate to lose?
I don't like it at all.
What about being second guessed?
I don't like that either.
Well, if I were you, I wouldn't have moved that rook. Checkmate. Sorry.
Whether you've played chess for years or never before, come experience all the sport has to offer at the world-renowned Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis.
You could fly to Venice or Paris or even Copenhagen. You could fly all over the world. But why? When you could just come to St. Louis. Your trip begins at ExploreSt.Louis.com.
So guys, I must have woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning because I'm thinking about my worst losses. I said, well, let me open it up. What have been your worst losses? Critical situations where a tournament was very important to you and you screwed it up.
Okay, before I get into a personal experience, I got to share one which I think was just unbelievably tragic. Okay, it was the semifinal of the candidates matches in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and it was Viktor Korchnoi versus Lev Polygaevsky. 2 games to go. Viktor's leading by a point. He's white. Polygaevsky falls into our preparation. Oh, I'm Viktor's second, right? Along with Michael Steen. Polygaevsky falls into our preparation. He's just toast. Just a horrible, horrible position. Polygaevsky offers a draw, and Korchnoi accepts. Like, what's up with that, right? Last game of the match, Korchnoi gets crushed.
Now they're forced into overtime.
Oh no.
Big press conference. Journalists ask, well, what do you think, Mr. Korchnoi, now you're in overtime? He says, well, it's crime and punishment. Just like Dostoevsky says, crime and punishment. Yesterday, I committed a crime by accepting a draw in such a superior position. Today, I get punished. The journalist asks, and what's the FIDE rating of Mr. Dostoevsky? Korchnoi did win in overtime, but
Actually,
that was a
ending.
painful loss. That was a painful
story.
Yeah, they hit
Yeah, but if I gotta admit, like, if you at least made it, it's like, okay, you can laugh about it, but
Right.
you don't have that pain.
Right.
That,
If you get knocked out
you
of
get
a
knocked out.
competition.
I mean, everybody has those moments where you've gotten actually knocked out, right?
Yeah.
I think the worst series of... I think I was pretty famous in 2013 because I played
The US
several Armageddons, actually, that year. All of them important, of course. They don't have
Including the
Armageddons
US
for not
Championship.
important.
Yeah.
And I lost
Some bigs going on.
all of them.
Every match.
single
I
one.
remember the one with Gada.
So I played an Armageddon with Lenderman. It was either that U.S. Open or the previous U.S. Open for the winner of the tournament. And of course, the U.S. Open winner qualifies for the U.S. Championship. Lost that. Managed to get in by rating, but okay, at least there's that. But I did lose that Armageddon. Then I played the 2013 U.S. Championship, and I played pretty well. And I made it to the finals with Garakamsky. We tied
for first?
Tied for first. We went off on a rapid playoff. We tied both of our games. We went to this Armageddon where I had like 19 minutes. It was 45. And got blown off the board, basically. I mean, there's no other way to put it. The entire game was bad. I lost that one. $10,000 difference. Nothing major. The history books, U.S. champion, well, bye-bye.
Yeah.
But because of that, I qualified to the World Cup.
Very nice.
Where I played in the first round against a very strong Russian player, Evgeny Tomashevsky.
Absolutely.
And we ended up drawing our first two games. Okay, not too bad. I actually kind of survived the first one, but okay. We went to
The
rapid
Rapids.
playoff. Yeah, so rapid. We again tie
1-1.
1-1. And then comes I think it was the blitz portion. Yeah.
Right.
So the fast blitz. It was like 10 minutes. And I'm white. And I lose. I mean, losing with white in a 2-game match just has to be the worst thing
Devastating.
ever.
Yeah. Got to come back with black.
I gotta come back with black. I play my trusty Benko Gambit.
Yes.
And I destroy him. Like, destruction.
Super solid Russian grandmaster, too. Wow.
Sacrificed 2 pawns, blew him off the board.
Very nice. Now you're in Armageddon.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
We even
Sorry.
have 2 more games. So blitz. Now it's actual blitz. And I win with white.
Man, you're rolling.
So I'm rolling. Now I have to score half a point out of the next 2 no matter what in order to qualify. And I lose the blitz with black. Armageddon, he chooses white. Beats me with white.
And that all happened in 1 year?
All of it.
In like 4 months.
And you're still, saying, what this is destroying me
Time
makes
to
me
go to school,
stronger.
get an education.
Time to commentate.
Eric, what about you?
If you had asked me 3 years ago, it would have been hard for me to come up with a response. I always had a strength in clutch situations, and I was in Canada. That's really, I was just always a killer in the last few rounds. But then go back 3 years. So I qualified to the World Cup. It was my second World Cup, and I had to play Vladimir Malakov. I lose the first game with black, just terrible. Okay, he just beat me soundly. And then the second game I have white, and I have to win. And this is my second World Cup, and I really took it seriously. I get he plays at Berlin, and I managed to somehow get a very, very large advantage. Not winning, but already near winning. And miss this one critical move, and he finds a way to draw. He's a very solid player. I get eliminated. That wasn't the worst, but it was a start. It was one of the first times where I needed to win on demand, and I didn't. But okay, I'm playing a 2700, and I didn't have much experience. Then fast forward 2 years later, I'm in Uruguay last year, Pan American Championship. I'm like there's very few American grandmasters. Everyone else is Spanish speaking. I had taken a World Cup spot last time in tiebreaks against the hometown player. I had brought a second with me. I took this tournament really seriously, and I was leading for most of the event. And in the final round, I'm playing Julio Granda with black. He's already qualified. He's got nothing to lose. He's actually playing a spoiler role, and nobody else, everyone else there was playing for World Cup qualification spots. Black, I get into probably a tie-break for the spots, but like a pretty favorable tie-break. I win the tournament, most likely. So I was like, I think, tied for first or in second, right, going into the last round. And we play, Julio's not there for a draw in the final round. He's just a spoiler. So we play a very sharp game. And I get into a middle game that I evaluate as quite a bit better for me. And I start to think, this is going to be a decisive game one way or another. So, I'm not really thinking about a draw. And I find a continuation that looks pretty promising for black. Spend about 40 minutes, looks very good. And I end up touching the wrong knight. So it was a position, and now it must have been nerves. It was a position where two knights could move to the same square, but it was a massive difference later on. And I touched that knight. And
did you know it when you touched it, that you touched the wrong piece?
I knew it when I touched it, but I had already touched it, and I ended up still with an okay position, totally reasonable, but I collapsed in 5 moves. And all that time flying all the way to Uruguay, bringing a second, playing good chess for 10 rounds, and then that was the worst loss of my career. It was recent, but that was a touch move.
No, but that's a terrible one.
And I just didn't recover. I blundered really badly a couple moves later. So.
Now, somebody brought up this topic, but I don't hear him offering one of his worst losses.
Yeah. Excuse me, Maurice. I have so many of them.
You're the one who fell out of the bed.
I remember losing to Walter Brown in 11 moves. That was not fun.
How was that?
Hard to do. I just fell into a trap in the Queen's Indian. He played this line. It looked like a pawn sack. I thought, what is this? Is this a pawn sack or is it just a pawn loss? And I sit there for 30 minutes trying to figure it out. I can't figure it out. I know he's not just giving me a pawn.
Right.
But if I don't see it, I can't just let it pass.
Right.
So I said, okay, whatever, let me do it. Took the pawn. 2 moves later, there with my knight. It's like, oh my God. Just like that, I was off the board. I just missed this nice queen maneuver. So that was one. Another big one, you talk about touch move, Nakamura.
Right.
The only U.S. championship I ever played in, it was a huge tournament. I took it just as seriously. It was worked really hard. Want to make a dent. I was the first African American in history to make it into the U.S. championship. All that, I was feeling really I wanted to play well. And I played against Nakamura, the young Nakamura, of course.
Right.
And I get this overwhelming position, a thing of beauty. I sack a piece on him. His king's marching around. I'm hunting him down. He's dead to all rights. This is just bustido. And instead of playing bishop d5, winning, I played knight d5. Immediately throwing away most of my advantage.
Ooh.
And I'm looking at the board, I'm in time pressure, I'm like, I should be winning. When you're this big,
absolutely.
I should be winning. And the thoughts of what should have happened, what could have happened.
Oh, no.
And then I just blunder 2 moves later and drop a rook.
Oh.
A rook.
And there you go.
So anyway, the joyous time. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah. Nice trip down memory lane.
Yeah, let's try to clear
one of the
these
things that we're talking about those painful losses in our career, cost us a U.S. championship, cost us a World Cup. A lot of my painful losses were when I was trying to make my title, right?
Oh yeah, the
all
title.
I needed is a half a point. And I kept losing, or I needed a win, and I came real close, but it was a draw.
But the great thing about those losses, I think all of us can say, we bounce back generally, right? Most of the time you bounce back from them.
Yep.
They could take a toll, but if you really approach them the right way, they could be springboard to success.
Part of the process. For me, I got the title in 3 weeks, so I never had. That's why part of the reason.
Beat him up. All right,
that's it. We're done. 3 weeks. I was like, I thought my 6 months was nice. 3 weeks.
No failures. That's it.
Just bam, bam.
Yeah, bam.
Okay. He's really nice to watch. This is
I'm Mike Matheny, manager of the Cardinals and chess fanatic. Many people don't know that St. Louis has a chess history as rich as its baseball. At the world-renowned Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis, across from the World Chess Hall of Fame, our goal is to teach, play, and promote the sport. Come to the Central West End and experience all that chess has to offer. Hi, I'm Mike Matheny. Whether you play chess for fun or want to boost your child's academic performance, come visit the Chess Club and Scholastic Center of St. Louis, right here in the chess capital of the U.S. From a welcoming, diverse environment to a scholastic outreach program, now in over 100 schools, our center across from the World Chess Hall of Fame in the Central West End has it all. So whether you've played for years or never before, we invite you to experience all chess has to offer.
Welcome everybody. We're back here from the St. Louis Chess Club. We are here with our program Today in Chess, and we are covering the Candidates Tournament over in Moscow. Well, it's been an exciting round.
Oh, without question. And the interest in the event from the American point of view just exploded thanks to Fabiano Caruana's victory today.
He is now tied in the lead with Sergei Karyakin. A definite result, and man, that's exciting. We want to see Fabi win. I mean, we're going to be a little biased about that.
Unfortunately, we are. We know that in India there's a lot of depressed persons, but what can we tell you? This is just a tough tournament.
It's a tough tournament. It's still very close. Fabiano Caruana and Sergei Karyakin lead with 6 out of 10. They're followed still very closely by Vachier-Lagrave and Levon Aronian with 5.5 each. Anish Giri, he found his 10th draw today. He needs to start winning if he wants to do anything in this tournament. Meanwhile, Peter Spidler, Hikaru Nakamura, and Veselin Topalov, they look a little bit out of the picture, haven't been showing the best chess.
Exactly.
All right. And we have more information, or let's finish up the game, actually.
Yeah, I'm still anxious to see where it was that Vichy had to give it up.
Yes, indeed. In this position, of course, it's a huge position for Caruana now. Gigantic advantage. The pieces are fantastic. And, you know, if only Black could have a move right now. Like, just give me another move. I can get out of this position. But you're not going to get that chance because it's White to move bishop to c6, attacking the knight, and also the rook, of course, a beautiful little simple fork. It's always nice when it's the simple ones, right? You just make a move, boom, there's no much to calculate here. And knight takes on d4, bailing out, donating in exchange in this position. And now an important moment in the game. I mean, he could have faltered by playing rook takes c4 here, but we anticipate that this is not the kind of move that he would make.
No, it wouldn't. You know, he wouldn't play all these correct moves just to slip up here. He finds the right move.
And the reason why this is a bad move is
rook takes e5.
Rook takes on e5, a little tactic. You know, it's kind of interesting because even here, he's not doing so badly is White after rook takes, but much of his advantage has dissipated here, fighting against the two pieces. A slight advantage for White even in this position, rook and pawn against the two pieces, but not what he wanted. Not what he wanted. Even if he could win this position, he said, no way. I'm not going to give you any chance. Let's play king f2, stop all that nonsense, and look at these pawns. I mean, they just look terrible in this position. Actually, all the pawns. Black's pawns just look miserable, and his pieces not coordinated at all.
Black's only banking on if they can do anything with that pawn on c4. If you can play knight c2 or protect that, but if once that falls, c7, a7, the whole 7th rank is vulnerable.
This next move, though, was money in the bank. I mean, knight to c2, attacking the rook, and this move, rook over to d1, rook e d1, ignoring the knight because, again, that pawn on f6, the bone in the throat, preventing the king from going anywhere. Now you can't touch the knight because it's mate on the back rank, simple chess, power chess. And once you see a move like that, this is when you start to feel with Black, already you know it's bad already, but now it's just like, you're not going to fight back no matter what you do.
No, it's lost here. You know, Fabiano's for real. There's no way he's letting this one go. And that's probably what Anand was feeling.
That's exactly, and you know, Anand tried to fight on, gamely played the piece here, knight, bishop to e4, knight takes c4, rook e6, going after the pawn, and now jumping into the position with check, king up, and now another precise move, getting out the way, allowing this pawn to fall so that he could play this move, rook to f1. Now the Indians give rook to d7 as also quite strong, but trading off the rooks, we know when you have a material disadvantage, especially if you've sacrificed an exchange on purpose, You want to at least keep one pair of rooks on the board, because trying to fight against a rook is just hard enough. The bishop and knight really can't do anything about this linear piece that starts to take everything. But here, once he saw the piece coming off, the 2 rooks coming off, Anand called it a day. He didn't want to see any more of Fabiano's technique.
Yeah, sometimes when you're down in exchange, it can still, there might be chances. But in this position, you trade off the pair of rooks. There are too many open lanes for the remaining rook. That's not a close position or something where the rook has difficult accessing the position. So this is just over.
And the other thing is that these pawns are just
isolated.
scrumptious.
Yeah,
they're isolated. He's not winning this one anytime soon. This one might go in a dark square quickly, and then just these pawns are just going to get picked off. Maybe a bit premature resignation on our level, maybe, but at that level with Anand, I mean, it's like, no, I don't want to see this. I'm disgusted. And in the press conference afterwards, Anand was morose. He was absolutely not interested in having any comments at all. You really felt bad for this great champion after having won yesterday.
So what was the critical moment you think that Anand missed, or what was he beating himself up on? This game, I think in the last 10 moves, Fabiano's played all the good moves. After f6, there's still some chances, but would you be upset as Anand for getting into that position in the first place, or do you think still after maybe it was the fact that he lost so easily by going for knight takes 3. Knight
c3 was just crazy. You should have the I want to say maturity, but Anand is not exactly a young buck. But he should have that mental toughness to say, you know what, I can't take that pawn. I cannot get desperate in this position. Let me buckle down and check my defenses later in the position. This is the critical moment, definitely, right here. After rook e1, Fabiano's daring him. Go ahead. Take it.
Right.
I dare you.
Right.
Touch it. And then to take it and then go into these lines where your knight's marching all over the board and then you're getting your b7 pawn taken off. I think he had to play knight to d6. He's worse, but ask Fabiano, what's your plan for improving this position? What are the next steps that's going to win this game? I don't think it's that academic at all in this position. So he needed to just do that right now. And I think in combination with the fact that he felt the momentum, he had more wins than anyone in the competition, 3. I believe he still has more wins than anyone in the competition. There's Anand. 3 wins is still the most, but he has 2 losses now, and that's pulled him back. So I think that it was that combination of not doing the right thing in the critical moment, and also the fact that he just really was optimistic and ended up losing, and now he's lost the tie for first.
Well, it's very difficult to play that move knight d6, but even before that, I think he might be a little disgusted with the fact that he saw knight e4 and either underestimated or missed rook e1.
Agreed.
Because if you see rook e1 and you analyze it, you don't go knight e4.
Precisely. And I think to answer Eric's question, that was a key moment. What I've got on my screen right now was that essentially this was the move that put Anand on the wrong track. He should have played, for example, a solid move. Let me just make this solid move if I can. c7, c6. And said, okay, I agree, I'm slightly worse, or maybe a lot worse, I'm not 100% sure about that, but go ahead and beat me.
Right.
And this would have been far more challenging, as it turned out, because really knight e4, and after that, Fabiano played perfectly.
Guys, the engines give the exact same evaluation, for the rook on e1 and the knight going back to d6 without c6, right? Playing knight d6 right now.
Right.
The engines with c6 in the position you were talking about, instead of playing knight e4, with c6 the engines are giving white a 0.78 advantage. 0.78, okay. Less than a pawn, but definitely an advantage. Of course, he's got these great pieces, wonderful pawn on f6. But after knight d6, it's giving, so we had 0.78, it's giving this position a 0.83 advantage. The difference is almost minuscule. Of course, throwing away 2 moves is one thing, but losing the game pretty much on the spot is another. Right. So you can miss rook to e1. You're allowed, right? You don't see all the moves. You're allowed to make a mistake. But how do you handle those moments? Those are the critical moments in chess that we often have to face, right? Big decision. How do you handle just this moment? You've made a move. You realize you're not really taking that pawn. You go, okay, I got it. Time to reset my brain and hunker down instead of going through that momentum pulling you forward, and all it's doing is pulling you forward into the quicksand where you're just going to die. And that, I think, is one of the marks of the great champions. Anand is definitely one of those, and he didn't show it today because he didn't make that right decision in the critical moment.
Going more off what you said, Peter Svidler has had problems this tournament dealing with that. When he's had a good position and he messed it up, well, he also has to reset. It's from both sides. If you have a good position, you mess that up and you have a less of an advantage, you still have to kind of reset yourself and not go on tilt. And on the flip side, as you described. So definitely surprising, though, coming from Anand, the experienced player here.
Yeah, that's a big topic. I remember Alex Yermolinsky has a book, I think it's called Secrets of Chess Improvement. Great book. Definitely you want to get that. And he talks about those swings in chess games. What happens when you're up and then you lose the advantage, right? You have this big advantage, and now you've lost it, and now it's even. What's your attitude? Do you say, okay, it's an even position. Let's just reset. My advantage isn't there anymore. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to play like God in positions like in chess. None of us do, right? So what do you do in this moment? Do you get the right attitude? Do you bail and say, I want to draw? Do you keep playing and say, well, I had an advantage before. I'll try to nurse it again. That's a serious sign of champions, how they handle just those situations. And you can bet in this situation, he's kicking himself for not acting like a champ. Would Magnus Carlsen have ripped off the pawn on c3? I got my doubts. You're going to see the snakes in that grass and say, no way I'm touching that pawn. I'm going to die. I need to back up now. And it's really at that moment that he did not show his normal mettle as a champion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was definitely a key moment in today's game. I think it's a good time to remind the viewers that we will have a special caller later in the show. Gary Kasparov will be joining us here.
That's excellent news.
Excellent news. But before that, we actually do have the results of our predictions. Going into this round.
Yeah.
Round 10.
Oh no! We're gonna rebound.
Let's see.
Not gonna watch. How did I do?
So, all right, we all had a draw on. This was round 9. Vishy, Anand, and Aronian.
We need to go.
But we already
I don't need to see this again.
That was a good day.
That was good. We can play that day over and over and over again. Round 10.
Here we go.
Okay. We had nobody. How did nobody guess a draw on this? How's that possible?
We thought Aronian would go out for blood.
All right, nobody got this right.
Aronian with white against Topalov. That certainly seemed like a
I saw
good guess.
Aronian as coming through.
Next, nobody got that right. Fabiano Caruana, Eric, and Maurice definitely had.
That's what's up.
That's what's up.
Well, they know what happened. Fabiano Caruana did defeat Vishy Anand, and we lost our point.
How could you bet against Vishy? You really have to be insane.
In the easiest prediction of the day, Sergei Karyakin did draw against Anish Giri. That was a pretty fast draw.
What's hurtful is that's the only one I got right.
And then Peter Svidler, he drew against
baby.
Nakamura. Well, Maurice is celebrating today.
Hello.
Wow, that was the only one that guessed it.
I went out on a limb there before you, Peter.
And we have the standings after 2 days of predictions. I don't think I want to see this. 3-5. I'm tied with Eric Hansen on last.
Ooh.
Never
That's
before.
pretty embarrassing. Yeah, never a good thing.
Never
Never a
before.
good thing.
Nah,
You know, I hate to say this though. I hate to say this, but
I thought you only got one right today.
I don't know if I deserve.
How did you get four?
I don't know if I deserve this score.
The man likes me.
Yes, there's something wrong. There's something wrong about this graphic.
Likes me.
Yes?
Did
I mean, I know you did well, but did you do that well? You only
You're
got
saying I went 4-0. No, I don't think that's correct.
I think
don't
you're 4-4.
I don't think I can give myself credit for this one because I believe I predicted.
He had one yesterday.
I was 1-3 yesterday, and I think I predicted
3 out of 4 today.
I think I predicted 3 out of 4, but I don't think I called Fabi winning against Anand. I think I called the draw, Topalov. I think I called a draw. You got to go but look at the videotape. I don't think this is the way it went down. So I mean, I think I would like to have 4. I'll take it. But I don't think this is what I predicted. I think I predicted 4 draws yesterday.
Also, we both got.
I think that's how I predicted. I think I got 3 points.
We both got the same amount of points today.
Right.
And we had the same amount of points yesterday. But now you're ahead of me.
Yes.
Yeah, something's wrong with
Something's wrong with this graphic.
Something's wrong with the graphic.
I can see the bias in the St. Louis Chess Club where it's heading.
I think that there's a tie. I think there's a big tie at first with the 3 Americans, with the lone Canadian coming up in the rear.
Yeah, but that would make sense, right?
That which you know.
Well,
that's obvious. That's obvious.
That's an obvious.
I don't mind that too much.
Guys, tell me about the game between Aronian and Topalov that was a draw, because really I had predicted Levon and I thought he had an edge.
Well, that turned out to not be totally interesting, but at some point they did end up to be an interesting position. But for Topalov, like maybe he might have tried to win this position. You see this. you almost feel like black is winning somehow because his bishop is so anemic until you look at the board and go, but how's this king going to get to the other side? It's encased in a prison. The armies can't approach each other. But earlier in the game, it was definitely more interesting. And I thought that if we just go to an opening position here, actually even a little bit later, we get to this critical position, I thought. This one where black seemed to be in a little bit of danger after rook to e1, rook takes, queen f5, and rook to e7. I think most of us on seeing this rook jump to the e7 square thought, what is Topalov doing? Isn't he in a little bit of trouble? But he defended amazingly well starting from this moment.
He defended well. I mean, a lot of people, I think, were feeling quite confident for Aronian. When he gets the activity going, he's one of the best. Like, he's really good at coming up with the attacking plans. In this position, there was an interesting moment for myself. I was analyzing with Yasser that, okay, we like this position a lot for white, and after rook b8, we spent a lot of time looking at c5 here. This was one moment that weren't exactly sure. c5.
By the way, we should just back up a little bit because I know a lot of fans are, looking at the position and they might be thinking, is this pawn something to grab? So wait a minute, the queen's here, bishop's hanging. Maybe he should double on the file. Instead, he played this move, king to g2, instead of dominating this d file, dominating the e file. Excuse me. So let's go with the line c5.
Yeah, and it seemed very scary. I mean, I'm going to take on a5. You can't play b6. The bishop's hanging.
Right, because now that's cut off.
And what was difficult was in a variation like this. Let's take on there. Queen there. Queen check. We were looking at a variation here. Let's say a forcing one. And queen a7.
Looks pretty good.
Looks very good for white. So it seems to be a move that puts black under pressure, but what Aronian did also had some pressure. So, but we weren't sure because this was a moment you could have gone for something direct.
Well, let's go back because he did not play this line. So he played c5, and you're saying dc5, queen takes a5.
And rook a8 is the only other option that we really considered.
Right, and this is the moment where engines play moves where all of us are like, oh, what's going on here? Playing the move rook to a8 as the best defensive move, all of us would look at this and kind of smell a rat, feeling like this must be good for white. This bishop is stuck in the position. This rook is going to come over somehow and attack this bishop. But the engines are cool, calm here. Your bishop is under attack, and after bishop c3, the queen is going to harass this bishop and ask you, how are you going to make any headway here with the idea of bringing the queen back to b5 in the position? So it's still a lot to play for, but I think that engines defend this position really well, but humans would have a tough time contorting yourself trying to get out of this and accepting pins like this one that look almost fatal.
Right. No, it was a challenging continuation, but there are pleasant alternatives that Aronian could have considered. But it was something that I would be concerned about if I was black in this position.
And what's interesting, of course, is that by playing king g2, I mean, he created the possibility of doing this now, right? He said, I'm going to go for it now. I'm getting ready. Except one move too late, suddenly the bishop's on b6, and the a-pawn is defended. And when he played queen e2, I was really impressed by this. d5, allowing this pressure, allowing incursion down to the 8th rank, but it doesn't lead anywhere. He now played c5, bishop to d8. I mean, you see this guy backing up all his pieces. You got to think there's something here for white. Isn't white better here? And the engines do think white's better. In fact, the way he played with rook e8 is one way to play. g4 is another way. But when you have good advantages, you often don't want to make aggressive moves like g4, compromising your king.
Yeah, I mean, he played a move like king g2. It's a prophylactic move. Keep the king safe, avoid any checks.
The queen b1 check.
You play a move like g4, and then you're prone to, perpetuals, and the g4 pawn is weak. So Aronian was trying to handle this position with care and just get a nice squeeze going on. And a move like g4 is a lot different than that.
I think he's going to be disappointed for sure, though, that he didn't go for it even more so. Yeah. After this line, bishop to c3, and now this defensive move, slowly but surely, rook to c8, and now rook f8, now again, bishop
g4,
to c7. g4, again, yes, in this position, he could have played more dynamically after rook to c8. The engines like to move g4, but not by much anymore. Rook f8, bishop c7, trade of rooks. I think when Topalov saw this, he was like, oh, thank God. Things are good again. And this position, of course, is going to peter out into a draw. We saw black try to make some moves, but it didn't lead anywhere.
So I think Aronian has a reason to be really disappointed here. I mean, when you're going into this position and you're putting your pawns on dark squares, as white, you want to win dynamically because the endgame, when you put all your pawns on dark squares, this endgame shouldn't be anything for white. So, I mean, he's putting those pawns on d4 and c4 on the dark squares in order to use that development advantage, use the e-file, and use that space advantage. It petered out really fast.
Really fast. It led nowhere.
It led nowhere. So, I mean...
We see this queen move, king g8, h4, h5, bishop d2, queen d8, and now it's just like nothing. Zero, zilch. If you want to trade queens, you're worse in the end game. And if you don't, you got nothing coming.
Yeah, a disappointing finish to that game for Aronian.
There are a lot of those we saw in this competition, guys. People missing chances. You know, sometimes you lose bad games, but some of those games where you only draw games you thought maybe you should have pressed and won, those are the games that just haunt you. You go back to the hotel room, you're just like, man, what's wrong? Why wasn't I able to press that game? I really thought I had chances, and they're annoying, and they gnaw at the psyche, and you have to somehow eliminate those. But as the competition goes further and further along, he was playing Topalov. Topalov's in dead last.
He has to make Topalov work for that half point.
He's got to make him work, and instead he got flipped around, and he was the one who was working, trying to save the position near the end. It wasn't too much work, but still, the Aronian's got to be feeling pretty down on himself right at this moment.
Thank you for that. That's still a kind of a game that gnaws at you.
Yeah,
you kind of
this
feel
pressure,
visually that you've got something for Levon, and I'm sure he's disappointed. And finally, what about our other draw? We had?
Well, we had 2 more draws, actually.
Well, as it turns out, yes, actually, the other draw that I was Hikaru's game.
Yeah, Hikaru played against Peter's Fiddler today. Probably not in everybody's radar, of course, since neither Peter nor Hikaru are having a particularly good tournament. But, you know, they still have something to play for. They're still trying to prove their chess. And it was an interesting game, I thought, to a certain point.
There's certain irony, because we saw twice in this round, this maneuver knight a4 to avoid allowing bishop takes c3. And again, is the English the opening of the future? I mean, because that's what I played most of my career. And I've got a question for our panel, because it's still a confusing one for me. You play the move knight c3 to a4 in order to win the 2 bishops on what you think is your terms, right?
Right.
And then he gets the opportunity here to take the bishop, and he doesn't. Well, let me throw that back to Maurice and Eric. Wasn't White's intention to grab the bishop? And, well,
why didn't he?
Why didn't he?
What are you asking us for? You're the highest rated player here. What's up with that? Well, I guess we can give it a shot, Eric. I will put it in your hands first. Right here after bishop to c5, he decided to play the move knight c3 instead of knight takes. Why not?
Well, I mean, why I wouldn't take on c5 right away. I don't know why you'd make, okay, you want to win the bishop pair, but if White takes the bishop on c5, Black recaptures dc5, and there might be a sort of strategical threat of a4 next move. You don't want to play a4 as White and keep, fix the pawns, but
to me, though, this d-file is bugging me, too. I mean, why is my pawn weak on this square?
Yes.
I feel like that is the most telling thing about this position, in my opinion. This bishop is going to target this pawn. You don't want to push because your bishop's going to suck. I mean, what's the deal, right? Then look at that d-pawn. I mean, when it comes to it, this pawn looks extremely weak. In fact, the engines are not clear on how to play as as White as of this moment, and he's giving Black the edge. But it's just, it's like the d-pawn. What are you going to do? It's just going to come under fire, and who needs the 2 bishops in this kind of position when you're controlling everything on the dark squares with the pawns? Usually you'd be worried because you've lost your dark square bishop, but it's harmony working, the bishop working together with these black pawns.
Yeah, when you have 2 bishops, you don't want to have you don't want to have to tie them down to weaknesses. So here, Black's compensation is d3, and that's not going away anytime soon. So it wouldn't be particularly good for White, I think.
Did we pass the test, Yas?
Yeah, I was just waiting for somebody to say the pawn on d3 was backwards. But that was well done. It took you a while to get there.
It's an interesting approach to modern theory, I think, because you do have this idea that you want to take the bishop on your own terms, and you don't do it. It seems like you're just combining so many different ideas in chess. And that reminds me that one of the better ways, I think, of improving chess when you are beginning, or you're below a certain rating, is to look at the classics. And I think the classics are just much more clear on intentions and ideas than modern chess, because this is a very convoluted game.
Yes.
I mean,
that's without question. And we'll throw it back to Maurice and Eric to see how the game unwound from this point, because it was, okay, it was a draw, but it was a sharp.
It was a very sharp draw that actually ended in, well, one of the better ways you can end a draw.
Exactly. A rook sacrifice.
Yes, pretty incredible continuation from this point, actually. The knight attacking the bishop. He said, let me go back with knight c3 in this position, did Svidler. And now queen to d7, preparing bishop h3, and suddenly the thrust knight to d5, preventing the bishop from coming down because the c-pawn is hanging. Knight takes d5, c d5, and after knight e7, Eric, this move, d4. Usually, if you're a white and you get to play this move d4, you're feeling pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, it opens up that bishop, and all the potential starts to come available. But in this position, the one benefit for black now is they can play bishop h3.
Indeed, and that happened after e takes d4, knight takes, bishop to h3, getting this bishop off the board. And now this move c6, the backward pawn on the open file, getting rid of it. Definitely a critical decision, though, because you're talking about compromising your pawn structure somewhat. You might have thought maybe you could hold this position very solidly, but he decided he's going to liquidate. Typical Nakamura. Don't sit, clarify the situation, make something happen. And this move, c6, is one of those defensive moves that Nakamura would play when I think a lot of players might say, well, how's he going to get my c7 pawn if maybe I just back my bishop up? I'm going to protect it forever.
Yeah, it's a good point. Nakamura always likes to force the issue. I mean, if we go instead of c6, I imagine there might be even bishop g2 first, or, I was thinking maybe something like knight g6.
Come over, but there's some space advantage on this side
f4 is coming.
To worry about, absolutely.
Then f4 is coming. So in this case, c6 is probably the right decision.
Maybe correct, in fact. And after takes, bishop takes h3, queen takes, knight takes, b4. We see a flurry of exchanges here, and now suddenly he's up a pawn after queen takes on d6, but rook takes, getting it back. And now queen takes c6, rook e8. This is like harem scarum. Everything is hanging. The bishop is hanging. Suddenly you wonder what's going on here. But at this moment, Nakamura was able to force a draw. And we can look at this for just a second. Queen takes, and now rook h4. You know he saw this coming long in advance. Mate possibilities on h2. You have to kill this rook. No other choice. And after that, then just a draw by perpetual check. And that was all she wrote in that game. But it was that critical moment here, guys. We can take a look. After queen takes d6, the fact that he walked from c6 all the way down into this line shows that he was calculating, talk about visualization, calculating deeply into this position.
Well, I think we can explain this game pretty easily. Nakamura is very good in open positions. He's a good tactical player, and a lot of times he's been questioned about his positional ability, his ability to hold bad positions. But this is an open position with a lot of tactical motifs here. We got a bishop on b6 and queen on h3, and I think Nakamura is very, very good in those positions. So for him to see a bit further and to see what happened in the game was something that was pretty natural to him. This is the type of position that he excels at, where there are some tactics.
As good as anyone in the world at playing wild tactical positions. And I'm being told in my ear that another player who had a slight penchant for these kind of positions, he did a little bit of skill, is Garry Kasparov. And Gary is on the line. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me.
So, Gary, I got a question for you. We've been guessing who's winning rounds and all that, each game. What do you think about who you are going to predict to win this competition?
If we believe computers now, Caruana has the best chances to definitely be impressive game today. But I don't think I'm surprised by saying that, Caruana and Craig have the best chances. They are followed by but it seems to be better now after this loss, maybe in pretty bad move, and hard to imagine he still has a chance tomorrow. I think he's correct, white. That will be this game just for rounds. But I don't have faith in this shoot just pulling out another rabbit out of a hat, though you never know. And Aronian's game today was. Yesterday was a bad game, but today was probably even worse because he played so poorly. So I think we're seeing another Aronian's demise as in London when he was doing well after the first round, competing with Magnus and then collapsed in the second round. So that's why it's between Caruana and Karayakin.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier in the show, that we had this Aronian going strong into the second half, but like in London, it seems like he's just not able to keep up the pace. So you really think it's just between Karyakin and Caruana right now?
Look, you know, there are 4 rounds to go, and you know they have +2, and both players with +1. They, you know, I don't think they have enough steam, you know, sort of to catch up. And Giri had his chance, but I think after missing, you know, multiple wins against Caruana, I think he missed his chance. He could have a great chance if he beat Caruana in previous rounds. I mean, having so many extra points, I think he could do better.
Now, speaking of Fabiano, he's had a very good result here. He's 6 out of 10. But what do you think of his gameplay? How do you think he has fared? He has had winning positions. He's had lost positions. Do you think overall he's showing the type of chess that would challenge Magnus Carlsen?
Oh, I think, you know, both Caruana and even Karyakin could give a tough match to Magnus. You know, it's even psychologically. I mean, it's when we're talking about Caruana. I mean, Magnus, you know, has to play somebody who's younger than him. It's, you know, again, it's not, you know, it's not that important, but still, you know, it may have, you know, some kind of psychological impact on Magnus. And again, I think that against Caruana or Karyakin, he's not doing as well as against Vachier or, of course, Nakamura.
Pardon me, Gary. I just have to say, for a lot of American chess fans, they're disappointed, as is Hikaru Nakamura in his result. Hikaru had a great year in 2015, really was playing excellently. What, in your opinion, has caused this failure for Hikaru? You know he prepared hard for the event. It's just not working.
I don't know. It's a very strong event. So and Hikaru, I mean, never did extremely well in very strong tournaments. So also, I think there were very high expectations, and probably, you know, just, you know, we entered the tournament, you know, just for it's his day, but you know, we're very slow start. He just he could recover. Also, I think this another element of psychology. I mean, Hikaru, you know, has a desperate score against Magnus, and you know, playing a tournament, you know, which could give you a chance to play against Magnus, you know, if you win this tournament, very strong tournament, I think was another, you know, psychological liability that Hikaru couldn't overcome.
Well, apologies for the technical difficulties. Gary is calling from Croatia, and we're having some difficulties on the line. But Gary, you mentioned that you think only those 2 players and the other 2 trailing may not have so much of a chance going to the next 4 rounds. But you have someone from your generation, Viswanathan Anand, who you defeated in a World Championship match, but has since won 5 titles. He knows how to win. Do you think that today's game will be so disappointing that he will not be able to come back in the next 4 rounds?
I think the game is disappointing, especially because it followed his great victory against Aronian. And I think, you know, just today he was crushed by Caruana, and it will have an impact. It's a blow that could be, you know, a decisive one for Vachier in this tournament. But let's not forget, he lost, you know, with black both games against Karyakin and Caruana. And especially today's game against Caruana, I think it was a very painful defeat because, I mean, Caruana had, you know, it's a new idea in the opening, by the way. I'm quite proud because, you know, this gambit was introduced by me. I prepared for Karpov in '87 and beat Ivanchuk in '88 Soviet championship. So I was quite pleased to see how Caruana handled this opening and organized the attack, sacrificing a piece. I think it's very, very difficult for Anand to play for a win tomorrow against Karyakin. But still, you know, Vachier is a great player, and tomorrow is definitely a decisive game. You know, he's facing Karyakin, and his only chance to compete is to beat Karyakin. If he doesn't, then I think it will be between Karyakin and Caruana, and especially considering that they play in the last round, which means, you know, we'll be guaranteed a phenomenal show.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that we're really looking forward to. If Caruana and Karyakin keep up their lead, they face each other in the final round of this tournament. What more could we ask for?
Drama.
Yeah, but let's not forget, I think it's not, it's not an automatic replay, rapid or whatever if they tie. I think there will be a tie break. Yeah. And, and if Karyakin has a better tie break, then it will be very hard for Fabiano to do something with black. Now, it will be more interesting if Caruana has a better tie break.
Yeah, and of course that's a tie break that's going to be changing. I was told that the first tie break is head-to-head match, since so far Karyakin and Caruana they drew their first round game. That's that's about it. Then it goes to Sonnenberg-Berger, which is more of a complicated mathematical formula that we have to wait until the final round to see who is ahead.
Yeah, but by the way, you look at the, you look at the results. Technically, they come up with the same Sonnenberg.
Oh wow! So they're even very close in that as well. It's going to be an exciting finish for sure in the candidates this year.
So far, they both beat the same players.
They beat the same players. That's right. They both beat Anand and Hikaru, right?
Yeah. So they beat the same players. Technically, we can end up, with Caruana and Karyakin tying, with identical scores and identical tiebreaks.
Wow.
That's insane.
I think they would go to the third tiebreak system, which I'm actually not sure what it is.
Right.
And
would it be something like TPR or something?
How about arm wrestling? I mean, come on.
No, they both won with the same color. They both wanted to beat the same players. So if nothing, let's fantasize. If nothing changes, or if they beat this one more, if they beat the same player, each of them in let's say they both beat Paul. Yeah. Which is.
But I think they would beat him with different colors though, and they might be an advantage. Because Caruana has black against.
I don't think those colors matter in this.
It won't even matter.
No.
I don't like the tie break. I think tie break sucks in this situation. You really want the person to win, right? Yeah. The one who's going to be the champion should play the other guy in a tie, and we win based on the roll of the dice.
I agree. This is when I thought about reforming the World Championship a long time ago and moving into candidate tournaments. I always believed that number one should play number two, especially if they tie. Because using the tiebreak system, it's just I think it's unfair because you have 14 rounds, and basically just. Somebody beat, one player, another beat another player. Both are good players, but one had a better tournament than another. So, if just, having a situation where a game between, let's say two players who are, in the bottom of this tournament, could decide who goes to play the World Championship match. I don't think it's fair. Also, remember what's happened in London.
Well, London was it was heartbreaking almost.
Krumnik competed with the Krumnik and Carlsen, and Magnus had a better tiebreak.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then Krumnik had to play for win against Ivanchuk, having black pieces, and it's I would rather see them playing natural chess and then playing maybe a rapid match, deciding who would go to challenge the world champion Anand at that time.
Especially in the modern age when you have Armageddon games, you put two rapids and maybe play Armageddon.
The rapid, I think it's fair, to give them a chance. I thought even, that the number one playing number two could be a fair a proposition. The winner of the tournament, extra point. It's by basically can offer him if they play four rapids and do these things. Still, it's a situation in the last couple of rounds where players bottom, they could have, decisive effect by the way they play for deciding who eventually goes to challenge the world champion.
Yeah, we're having some trouble picking you up, Gary. If I may pose this question, I think it's really fascinating for me. You've been in these kinds of situations before, tournaments before. 4 rounds to go. What's the mindset? I know you like to win all your games, but what's the mindset? It's 4 rounds to go. Is it time to really put the foot on the gas and try to win every single game, or is it the time to just be circumspect and not risk too much?
Anand is definitely it's last chances, make or break tomorrow. He must Karyakin if he wants to compete.
A big risk for Anand tomorrow, so we're expecting.
Yeah, that's the. Now, I think Karyakin typically plays, quite safe, and this tournament, it's so far it works for him. I think Karyakin will look at the game with Topalov as his chance. He plays white. Yeah, and he will definitely be defensive against Anand, and also another game against Aronian, who he plays black. So I guess Karyakin's plan is simple, to win one more game before the last round, and see if Caruana also has +3, and then he has a better tie break, and then with a white in the last round against Caruana, he will have sort of a more comfortable position if they still tie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Karyakin seems like his solid approach might take him to exactly where he wants to be going into the last round. And what about Fabiano? Do you think he's going to go all out with the 2 whites that he has, or he's going to be like, okay, maybe I have an okay tiebreak, be content with solid positions?
No, but he cannot again expect, just Karyakin making all the draws, So I think Caruana will play each game. I don't think Caruana, is the kind of a player who makes big plans. So far, he goes from game to game. Tomorrow he faces Topalov, and Topalov is vulnerable in this tournament. So I think Caruana can expect that in the next 3 rounds, with having black against Topalov, white against Peter Swidler, and white against Aronian, he could expect to win 1 game. But Caruana is known for winning many games in a row. So and I will not be surprised that he will have big push at the end of the tournament. So far, everything looks very promising for him, especially today's victory against Vichy. It's a big boost.
Without question, it was a huge victory today. Well, we'll see how the road develops. It's going to be an interesting tournament. Thank you, Gary, for joining us here today in chess, and we look forward to having you in later editions.
Tomorrow, let's see what happens tomorrow. We can see whether we're right or wrong in maybe our predictions.
Okay.
Enjoy Croatia.
Wait a minute. We get Gary. Maybe Gary can come in on this prediction game. What is your guess for tomorrow's games only? Let's get the pairing so that Gary can make a guess about tomorrow's games. Right now, we have been miserable, at least like maximum 50% in our guesses in each round. But here we have the pairing. Levon versus Fiddler. What's your bet on tomorrow's result?
Draw.
A draw between Levon and Fiddler, okay.
And Topalov.
Should I give one result only? Yes.
Just one result.
Just one. Well, now Vasilin versus Caruana.
I pick up Caruana.
Write this down, guys. Write this down. We're going to hold Gary to it. Okay, and now the next one is Anand against Karyakin with the white pieces. Anand.
Draw.
Okay.
And finally, Giri against Nakamura.
I take my chance. I pick up Giri.
Wow.
All right.
I think you're going to get a whole bunch of GMs disagreeing with you on that one.
But look, again, you're asking, to make, prediction for a game of equal players. Again, Giri plays white, and Hikaru has a bad tournament. So,
yes.
Yeah,
which it's like net wrong on every game.
Well, we look forward.
Okay, since you forced me to make predictions, you should call me tomorrow, and we'll, and I will be either celebrating or crying.
We'll be sure to do that, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us, Gary.
Okay, talk to you tomorrow. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That's going to be a chance for a Canadian to beat Kasparov in something, eh?
Well, let's take a look.
Well,
let's do it. I mean, we got the predictions for tomorrow, right?
All right.
We do.
Let's do it ourselves.
And I don't think I'm going to get influenced by Gary on this one.
No, we're strong enough players that we have our own opinions, right?
Let's go.
All right, let's do this. Where do we start? We have, I believe, Sviller. Anand Karyakin is where we're going to be starting, apparently. Eric.
Start first. Anand, typically after a loss, usually try to stabilize. I'm going for a draw here.
Maurice?
This one's a hard call. I think Anand is actually going to go for it in this game. But Karyakin has been so solid this entire tournament. I expect him to draw this game.
Vichy is like a good wine. It gets better with age. I'm telling you, the man's going to make a comeback. I see him taking the measure of Karyakin and winning.
That'll be huge for the tournament. Huge. Biggest news of the tournament
I'm with
probably
Gary.
so far.
It's a must-win. It's a must-win game for Vichy.
Wow, this is a tough one. I'm leaning... No, I have to go with the draw. I'm going to have to go... Karyakin is too solid.
You just don't want to be tied with me.
Wow, no, come on. Nobody wants to be tied
let's
at the
moving
bottom.
on.
All right, moving on. We got Levon Aronian against Peter Svidler.
I like Aronian in this game. I think that he knows he needs to win. He's got white. He's going to go dominant. He's going to have to go for it.
This is one of his last chances.
This may be his last chance, as far as I'm concerned.
I think
Aronian
so.
has to win this game so that he can feel like he belongs with the others at the top. So I win for me.
I don't think you should wake up Peter Svidler. I'm predicting a draw. He's going to play very well to hold the position and draw against Aronian.
I hate to agree with the Canadian. I really do. But Eric's right. Somehow Levon has lost a lot of wind in his sails, and I'm predicting a draw.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a draw as well. I don't think that Svidler has been playing that badly. I think he's been a little unlucky. And I think that Aronian, even though he has more points, his games have not been that convincing, at least in the second half. And I don't see him recovering that quickly.
All right, let's go on. What's the next matchup?
We got Anish Giri against Hikaru Nakamura. I'll take it first. I'm going to agree with Gary.
Ooh,
I'm going to give Anish a win in this game. I think he's still motivated. I think Hikaru is just trying to get the tournament over with. I don't think he really has that much fire in him compared to what Giri still has. I think he still, in his mind, has an off chance of winning, and that'll catapult him to actually have his first victory of the event.
I'm going to go with history. The history is that Anish Giri is drawing all of his games, and he can't get out of that rut. Sorry, I see it a draw.
Okay.
I think I'm going to have to agree with that. Giri if he hasn't won the positions like the one against Fabiano, I don't see him winning unless something dramatic happens. Of course, Nakamura's not playing that well, but I got to go with history too. I agree with Yaz. I think this one's going to be a draw.
I'm going to be optimistic. Hikaru Nakamura is going to bring out the King's Indian. He has nothing,
Whoa.
He's going to play for a win. He's going to beat Anish Giri with black.
That's
wow.
And that's why Eric's
from a
in
bad
last place.
position. You're tied with me?
Don't rub it in. Let me rub it in. All right, and the final.
The final and key matchup, I think, tomorrow. Topalov against Caruana. Ooh.
Whoa. I should know how these players match up in coming into the event. Caruana is just blossoming, just perfectly timed. Vesselin just got back into the tournament a little bit with the game today. I'm favoring Fabiano, but I'm not favoring him enough. I'm seeing a draw.
All right. Maurice.
Yeah, Fabi actually does really well with black against Topalov.
Yes.
And he's played some nice games, as a matter of fact, with the black pieces against Topalov. But I think he sees his two whites as where the money is. He's going to play cagey enough that he gets some kind of position and draws the game. That's where I am. Draw for this game.
Going to have to agree there. I think it's a draw. I think it'll be a draw.
Man, I want to be the optimist. I want to say Caruana's going to win, but logic tells me he's black. It's one of the only two blacks he has remaining. He has no reason to risk too much. Topalov has no reason to push incredibly hard. I think this is going to be a draw.
I just wanted to get in one quick quip about that game between Nakamura and Peter Svidler just at the end. At this position, at this exact moment, Peter Svidler knows the perpetuals on tap. And Peter captured the bishop and allowed the perpetual. A lot of players might say, hey, I'm a pawn up. I don't have to go for the perpetual right away. Why don't I just snap this pawn off and, play the position of pawn up? And suddenly this move, bishop takes f2 check. That would come like a cold shower into the position, and just like that, it's game over.
Right.
So that was why.
Why don't you show that line, Yaz? So
that was why Peter allowed the perpet. If you take it with the rook, you get mated on the back rank. You take it with the king, you get mated on e2 after queen h2 and over here. If you don't take the bishop, well, you've just tossed a pawn away, and if you go king h1, then there's bishop takes g3.
Ouch.
And bad things are happening.
And you're kind of wondering where did that perpetual go?
The whole building just collapsed on you.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was why we saw the perpetual. Nice shot, that bishop f2. Easy, easy to miss.
Yes, I think it was a well-played game between Spiller and Nakamura. It was not. It was just a fair draw, I felt. Like, they had interesting strategical elements. I think Nakamura calculated a draw when he had to. And it was well-timed just overall the entire game.
Agreed.
And the game between Giri and Karyakin, of course, that matchup ended in a draw. A very solid game. A solid is just a euphemism for boring. But I'm sorry, but it's the way I call it like I see it. Those two played solidly. Karyakin... it looks like he's content to just play for a little bit, push for a little bit. Giri's content not to lose. No way in the world he wants to lose with the black pieces. I see a graphic there that says 4.5 out of 10, but Giri's drawn all 10 of his games.
Yeah, he's
so he should have 5 out of 10 at the moment. And he is just not... I mean, I'm a big Giri fan. I hate the fact that I have to call draw after draw for him, but I think he has style. I think he's... got a great sense of humor. Certainly stylish, just the way he dresses. You know, we got into a Twitter war about who's stealing whose clothes. Me and him, young man, relax. But he's just a great kid, a great young man, a great ambassador, I think, for the future of our sport. But he's got to win games. I mean, you can't be getting nicknames like the painter or the artist because you draw so much. That's not a good nickname to hold. He needs to start winning games, find something in his style that allows him to defeat the top players and not just not lose.
Yeah, it's the same story over and over again. So hopefully it's something he goes to work on right away. It's frustrating. I'm friends with Anish. I'd be happy to see him play Magnus, but
and he'd have a great chance against Magnus.
Yeah,
Magnus would have a tough time beating him games.
Yeah, and even getting
even good positions.
Yeah,
exactly.
So no, it's very frustrating for all of us, I think.
Guys, I have to just differ for a sec because I just think it's a part of the learning process. And it was one of the things I really admired, actually, a great deal about Peter Leko. He became a world-class player, and he really needed to boost his confidence that he could hold. That whenever the occasion called for it, he was able to hold the game. And it boosted his confidence greatly. And Anish is at that stage in his career where he needs to feel that, you know, he can play with anybody at any time and he can hold the position. Well, he's achieved that. He's got to that level. Now he needs to just take it to the next level where it's time, you know, to turn on the after-roost and start getting some wins.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd be a heck of a match, no question about it, for Magnus.
2 years from now, maybe 4. Well, he might still do it this tournament, but certainly he's an awesome player. But he's already proven hard to beat, almost impossible to beat this guy on call. Very difficult player. But once he adds that extra element, we see some spice in his game. 2 years, 4 years. But as you mentioned, Yaz, Peter Leko also had his chance, and he never got there. He had his one shot against Kramnik, and then that was it. And then now he's tumbled down the rating list. Whoa. Very difficult if you don't prove yourself.
Right. Whoa, 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 whoa. Back that one up at big time. Just a second. Peter Leko played Vladimir Kramnik for the World Championship with 1 game to go.
Yes.
Peter Leko had the lead. All he needed was a draw. Vladimir won the game, and by virtue of being the champion, he retained the title. But boy, Vladimir was lucky to escape that match.
Well, wait a minute now. Isn't that the mark of a champion? The fact that you win on call. That's the point. We want champions to show their stuff.
That's right.
Gary Kasparov, when he was tied in a match against Karpov, which one was it? In Seville.
1987.
Even though he was down a game, he was down. It was the same situation.
Right.
Kasparov had to win the game on call against Anatoly Karpov, and he managed to do it and retain his title. I think that the mark of a champion is that ability to win when you need to. And Kramnik showed it. Kasparov showed it. The top players just do that. That's why they're the best. That's why they're the world champions. So I think that this is a quality that that Leko, needed to find. He got his chance and he didn't find it. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. And Giri, I don't want to see that happen to him. He should go find. What does he need to do? to start beating these players on a regular basis.
Absolutely. And let's not forget that Giri, well, he's a kid. He just turned legal drinking age in America. I mean,
good point.
So we still will see plenty of improvement from him.
Absolutely.
And we'll see what he can do tomorrow. So let's look at the pairings one last time for tomorrow. Will be round 11, a key matchup. We have Levon Aronian playing against Peter Svidler. Veselin Topalov, a huge matchup for Fabiano Caruana. If he wins with black, that's huge. Vichy Anand will be playing against Sergei Karyakin, another key game. Vichy Anand wants to win. He wants to knock out Karyakin from the lead, take it for himself. That's going to be a tough game. Anish Giri will be playing against Hikaru Nakamura. It's what we're talking about. Anish Giri needs this win to be considered for the rest of the tournament. Otherwise, he will just be one of the others.
And by the way, guys, I mean, come on, Vichy is bringing it to this tournament. I mean, you take Vichy out of the cross table, the guy's responsible for 5 decisive games.
Oh, he's bringing it. He's the fire in this event.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
It's really, really remarkable.
And we have the standings after round 10. Fabiano Caruana and Sergei Karyakin are in the lead, 6 points each. Vichy Anand and Levon Aronian, they follow with only half a point less. Anish Giri at 50%, 10 draws. Peter Svidler at -1, Hikaru Nakamura -2, and Veselin Topalov is ready to go back to Bulgaria. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes.
And this is our show for today.
Great
Thank you, Yasser.
Alejandro, always a pleasure. Today in chess. Don't miss us
Today in
tomorrow.
chess, and we'll be here tomorrow at noon with all the action from Moscow.